Okay, Rand. So thanks for joining us today for this brief talk. Want to get into talking about SparkToro, digital marketing in general, but also some SEO things. But I want to start with the most important question out there that I think the entire world and industry is interested about. What is the secret to your carbonara spaghetti that makes it better than Italian spaghetti?
All right, so I wish there were only one secret.
Okay.
The problem is there's like 7 secrets, maybe 8 secrets. I think the most obvious one is you've got to use a double boiler.
Okay.
So you have your pot of pasta water, right, and it's boiling away. You take the pasta out, you put that in with the pancetta or the guanciale, whatever you that's in the an olive oil and that. You put it in there, toss it up a little bit, and now the water's still boiling, and you take a metal bowl. It's got to be completely metal, and you're basically holding it with pot holders over the boiling, steaming water, and that has your egg mixture in it, which another secret, it has to be, you want more yolks than whites. Okay. So you want to go yolk heavy, and then you've got a bunch of your cheese in there. You want pecorino and parmigiano. You have a bunch of black pepper in there, salt, and you're just stirring that with a fork, right, constantly over the heat. And it has to get to like this, it's infuriating. There's about a 10-second window where it is cooked enough that it gives you a perfect texture, versus too cooked where it'll start to scramble. And you can only do it kind of by looking at it. Like you have to watch it really carefully. It'll start to stick to the side of the metal bowl. Anyway, that's when you pull it off the heat and you let it cool. You actually let it cool down for like another 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Then you dump it in with the pasta. Anyway, it is an intense few minutes of cooking, but it's actually not a very long cooking process. Like it's a short meal to make, easy meal to make. It's just, you feel like you're in Top Chef. Very precise in the moment.
I bet. Where did you learn how to cook? I mean, I can clearly see that's something you enjoy, but is it something you actively...
Totally self-taught. I mean, I've taken some cooking classes in Italy and here in the US, but just like amateur fun stuff, right? Nothing professional or even on that level. But I have made carbonara probably 100 times, and in the last 10 or so, gotten it really, really right.
Usually that's the key to getting things right, repetition, and then...
Also, I found a pasta brand, an Italian pasta brand that is amazing, just incredible. So I ordered it from some supplier in New Jersey or something. Oh,
so it's very important to get the right pasta. Okay, that's...
Yes, right, because the noodle has to be thick enough that it takes longer to cook. The spaghetti, it takes longer to cook, but it has to be sort of a thickness and really nicely. You want that like bronze cut, air dried pasta, because then it does 2 things. It gives off enough starch in the water so that the sauce like clings to it really well, which is harder with a spaghetti noodle and a thinner sauce. So yeah.
Well, I don't know if you had lunch. I had lunch and I just got hungry again, but we'll see.
I haven't even had breakfast yet. So.
Oh wow, it's been a long day.
Yeah, it was a crazy morning.
Okay, awesome. So to start off, there's one thing you mentioned in a Q&A you did earlier this week with last week with Will from Seer, and you mentioned that in 2008 you had the chance, you were a CEO at Moz, and you launched. It was the time where you were launching Moz as a software. It was the transition between consulting to software. And it was in the middle of a very big economic crisis. And now at SparkToro, you launched a product in the middle of a different, but still nonetheless important crisis. What has that experience been like for you?
Gosh, to be honest, the 2008 financial crash, I think that affected... it affected lending, it affected the American economy and obviously worldwide economies. But it was interesting in that it sort of hit pretty fast. It was, by the time we even realized that, how hard it had hit sectors that weren't just finance, we were already kind of back up on the upswing, and there was nothing really stopping us from being able to go do business as normal, right? It was just kind of fear itself was the thing holding people back. And so that climate, to be honest, it was a great climate to build a software company that focused on helping people get organic traffic, right? Because a lot of people were switching their budgets from paid to organic, which makes good sense anytime there's an economic recession, right? You want to try and find higher ROI channels. You can start to invest for the long term, because you know that right now is the period when people have the least money, and in the future they will have more money again to spend with you. So you kind of can invest for the future and invest for the pent-up demand. This crisis, this is a whole other thing, right? This is
there's no manual for this.
Yeah, no manual for this. I think, you know, I talked to my grandparents about the late 20s and early 30s, right? Which is when they were little kids and grew up. And that, yeah, I think that's the only parallel, because we don't know how long it's going to go on. Right. There is a real, there's a real life-threatening reason why we're not all going out and spending money. That could persist for a long time. It could rise up again. We don't know how long a vaccine might take. We don't know how distribution might work, yada, yada, yada. And then there's all the sort of political madness around the situation, right? I think in 08, at least in the United States, and I think in many places, right, there was like some consensus around, hey, we have to prop up these things. We've got to do this work. But
yeah, it's been interesting. So I've watched a couple of keynotes you gave on talking about SparkToro, and even hinting towards what solution could SparkToro bring in the future when it's now launched. What was the main reason that drove you to pick this topic to generate SparkToro? Were you looking to capitalize on an opportunity? Were you looking to heal on a pain that you found in the industry? What was your thought process there?
Yeah. No, great question. So we had this weird experience where, I've been helping lots of startups and companies of all kinds with marketing. And my last company, Moz, right, was very focused on SEO. Right? So helping lots of people do SEO kinds of work. And oftentimes I came up against this struggle where if you had a product or service that people weren't already searching for, you had to go create demand by marketing where search could not help you, right? Like if you have a new process for, treating whatever water in chemical plants, like you got to go market that to chemical engineers and make them aware of it. You can't just rely on them to search for, oh, what are some new ways to do this whole process, right? So it just, those types of products and services, helping those kinds of people, led me to this conclusion, gosh, there's this really untapped kind of digital marketing world of how do I go and do marketing by figuring out the places that people pay attention to, right? And man, I gotta say, there's so much bad process, bad information, people relying on like sort of their intuition. I don't know if you've ever had this, Santiago, right? Where you go to, you go to a meeting, a bunch of people around a table, and there's some executive, right? Some important person in charge. And they say, I want you to get us in the Wall Street Journal. And everybody around the table kind of looks at each other like, we know our audience, maybe 1% of them read the Wall Street Journal. It's just that big, fancy, important executives like this, usually it's a guy, like this guy, think everyone must read the Wall Street Journal because he does.
He does, exactly.
And you don't have data, right? You can't bring, it's hard to bring data to that battle, but that's what you need. What you need to do is say, yeah, so you told us you wanted to reach interior decorators and interior designers who work with, who work with wealthy people on their big mansions and homes. Yeah. That's our audience for our new lighting product. I have some numbers here that show that 1% of them pay any attention to the Wall Street Journal, but 17% of them pay attention to this particular whatever, YouTube channel, podcast, publication, website. That was the inspiration, right?
Okay.
Wanting to be able to say, hey, who actually pays attention to stuff? And we saw in our early research, we saw some super savvy companies, kind of, like agencies like yours that were really, really savvy, and they'd sell these packages to, companies, brands that they worked with, where they'd essentially say, hey, we're going to build a crawler to go crawl the, Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and social accounts and websites of your customers, the people that you tell us you're trying to reach. And then we're going to aggregate that data and present it to you. But you can imagine, right? That's an awesome sale, because it's like 40 grand, 50 grand, $100,000, right?
Yeah.
To go build that. But some people did it, and when they did, the results were awesome, right? They really brought data to that battle. And Casey and I had this sense that sucks. Like, everybody should be able to do that. Small businesses should be able to do that. You should be able to say, hey, I am trying to reach nail salon technicians and the buyers at nail salons with my product. Where do owners of nail salons pay attention online? What YouTube channels they watch, what podcasts they listen to, what websites they visit, what social accounts are they following? And someone should be able to tell them that. Let's build that. Like, let's see if that's a product that can work. So that was our inspiration.
Yeah, no, it's great. And it helps basically making, data-driven decisions and being able to, sit down with that executive and say, if you really want to be in the Wall Street Journal, we'll do it. But the data shows that, 70% is elsewhere, and having access to that is wonderful. Having been in those meetings, having had that data would have been fabulous in some situations.
Oh, same here.
So a question, sort of how a SparkToro works. When we look at sets of data from either the US or Europe or Latin America, did you and Casey focus on them differently, or is it the same methodology for all the data?
It's the same methodology. That it's just right now our coverage is sort of like 90% English language.
Okay.
And so, if I do a search for whatever it is, people who have SEO in their profile and are based in the United States, we're going to have tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of those people. And if I do it for Argentina or for Italy or for Peru, it's going to be a very, very small number. And so over time, right, our goal is hopefully, if this tool resonates with folks in English language markets and even folks who are in other markets but targeting English language markets, if it works for them, our hope is that we can start to grow our revenue and then expand our indexing capabilities, reach a much larger group of people, and we're starting to see that. So it's my hope is a year or two from now we have really decent coverage of Europe, Latin America, some of Africa, Middle East. Yeah.
Okay, cool, great. And who would you describe as the I clearly understand SparkToro works for many different kinds of marketers and different kinds of profiles, but what aspects of those people do you think make it an ideal user for SparkToro?
Yeah, my sense is so far we've had an extremely diverse group of people. To your point, right? I think Santiago, you nailed it, right? That we've had this very, very diverse group of people trying the product and purchasing the product. And so I think we don't yet know who the ideal customer is, but my guess is it is less around your title or role or your type of business and more around whether you consistently have this problem, right? And that problem is I need to find the sources of influence. So one group that's been very heavy users early on is content marketers.
Right.
And that makes sense because content marketers don't just have one product that they're trying to reach to one market. Every time they produce a piece of content, they have a new product, right, for that piece of content, and they generally want to target it to a slightly different audience, right? Who's the blogger or person on social who might tweet about this, put up a LinkedIn post about this, link to it from their website, Where can we do a guest editorial about this facet of our, whatever. We ran a survey, we have this data, we want to share that. We collected some information from this tool and we want to write a blog post about that. We have a new white paper, we got a new report. Every time they produce something new, SparkToro is sort of useful to find that those sources of influence to reach an audience. So I think that's one of them. The other one seems to be had a surprising amount of in-house consumer folks. And I think a lot of those are media buyers.
Okay.
Right. So they're basically, they're looking for like, hey, we want to do some Facebook targeting, but we go to our the Facebook audience tool and we have to get good ideas of what to plug in to Facebook's audience tool before we can find, the people that we want to reach. Same thing with, whatever, Instagram or Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. And so same thing with Google, with YouTube, right? And so they use SparkToro to try and find new audience segments to target with different messaging or different products or services, et cetera.
Okay, great. And it's kind of also, briefly taking it to SEO, when you start building, for example, a keyword research, you have plenty of tools that give you great ideas and help you track and give you data, but you have to plug in the right ideas to get that tool going. So it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I'd love to find some way to eventually do is to kind of cross-pollinate that. Mm-hmm. So not just, have data about an audience's online behavior, and then try and also translate that into here are topics that they probably search for. Mm-hmm. And I think you might be able to do that by essentially looking at the websites that they frequently share, visit, engage with, mm-hmm. and then reverse out what do those websites rank for.
Okay.
Right. So conceivably in the longer term, SparkToro could help on the, hey, tell me what interior designers search for, as well as what do they visit. That is a possibility, but probably very long term.
It seems that you have different kinds of problems. My favorite kind of problems are happy problems. And it seems that you have a happy problem with all the different ways and directions you can take the tool. It's very interesting. And it seems like a very difficult decision how to prioritize which one do I go for first.
Yeah, I think this is a challenge for everyone, right? So like you have your customers and you have people who are giving you feedback who are, what do I want to say, sort of, like influential sources in the industry, but aren't necessarily paying customers. And then you have people who are sort of trying it out, but not paying. And all three of these different groups are giving you different kinds of input about what they want. And so you have to prioritize, like, okay, are we going to do, things? I think anytime you have paying customers and multiple paying customers ask you for the same thing, you do that. Yeah. That's like number one, right?
Yeah.
And then you kind of have to say, all right, now can we figure out what the next group of people who might adopt our product wants? But it is it's a challenge. You're right. It's a happy problem. It will be an especially happy problem if we can get this thing to profitability. Yeah.
Okay, great. And taking it more to a broader marketing segment, you also mentioned in that Q&A last week, something that I haven't heard in multiple webinars and Q&A was you placed quite a bit of value in being a generalist marketer, to having a good amount of knowledge to be able to at least wade into different waters, different channels, be able to fend for yourself. Yeah. And it seems that now everybody's trying specialize and be a extremely technical crawling SEO, which is great as well because it shows growth in the industry. But I wanted to hear your take on why do you find value in being a generalist marketer per se?
Yeah, I think the biggest reason is because my sense is very often that specialists have the classic, every problem looks like a nail because I have this hammer. And in fact, that can lead you and your potential, clients or team very much astray. my sense is a lot of times when I've looked at a marketing problem, right, a challenge, the issue of, oh, we have a large number of pages that Google doesn't seem to be crawling as frequently as they should, and they're not ranking as well as they should. And so, hey, let's try and do that. Oh, we fixed the problem. It was a few month project to figure it out, and then the implementation on the development side, and we got these pages indexed, and our traffic grew by 15%, which is amazing, and sales went up. Well, maybe sales went up 2 or 3%. It's tough to tell. Were the visitors to those pages that came from search actually valuable ones? Did they end up being future purchasers of products? And then on the flip side, you look at, oh, our positioning in the market against our competitors was X. When we changed it to Y, sales went up 30%. And that was a messaging problem, and that was a positioning challenge. Look, it's not that the technical SEO and getting things crawled and indexed, it's not that that's not important. I think that's a good problem to solve. It's great to be technical. It's great to be able to get tactical in the weeds like that. There are companies who absolutely need your help, but there are so many companies that just don't understand their customers and why their customers buy from them or their competitors, why they choose alternative solutions. And very, very often I've seen so many examples over my career of folks who did terrible SEO, awful SEO, and crushed their market, right? They became huge. Is Zoom great at SEO? No, they are not, right? They're not the big winners, right? Was Uber great at SEO? Yeah. Nope. Airbnb? Nope. So, but they managed to nail other sorts of problems. And so I think it really pays to just be able to get out of your individual bubble. It's awesome to have these skills, but it's great to be able to get out of that bubble, take a higher level approach, and then be able to advise your team or your client or your boss or yourself, right? If you're doing your own projects, and say, aha, I think this is the most pressing problem. Going back to your earlier question, right? How do you prioritize? Yeah. In product development, you listen to customers. In marketing, I worry we sometimes prioritize by, like a tool told me this, or I know how to fix that, or I think we can get more SEO traffic from this, as opposed to what's fundamentally holding us back. Right. Yeah. No. I totally agree. Sometimes the conversation goes, what's the difference between, having a tool that'll tell me what to do and then having a team of people that can help me make better decisions? And I think it comes down to those kinds of points. Absolutely. I wish there were a tool. Maybe we should make this. You and I, Santiago, we'll make a tool that basically, it just tells you, well, your marketing is off because of this. Right? Like, here's the highest value marketing thing you could do. That would be a pretty killer tool. Yeah. I think we'd have a fun time getting that to profitability. If we get it to work, it would be like the like the room filled with hamsters in the background, right? It's just like a whole bunch of smart marketers in a room, and every time a question comes in or a website comes in, they just manually type it in there. Right. And it's just, well, what's the secret behind the algorithm? Well, it's a room full of hamsters. I can't tell you. I can't promise to tell you. So one thing that I personally I have been admiring from you, it's a concept that I think you take in everything you do, both in businesses, both in Moz and from even like, the Whiteboard Friday days to SparkToro to whatever you share on your Twitter or personal social media. You're able to communicate concepts, very complex concepts, very simply, very effectively. You can even tell that from the way you design your slides when you give different talks and different keynotes. And I personally truly suffer. I truly have a hard time when I see a presentation that has great information, but you can't fathom what's going on. Is that something I think you do, but I wanted to hear what's your opinion. Is that something you actively take to everything that you do? Yeah, I think it is. I think that's sort of the way my brain is programmed almost, that I have this, what do I call it? like a mental model where anytime I'm presented with a piece of information or a process, or I learn something new, I try and think about how I could break that down simply and explain it to someone else. And when I can't do that, that's when I know that I don't really understand the topic. Right. So I have always been a terrible programmer, right? Just, you know, from my early years writing PHP in like 2002, just never, I never really grasped it. And my career trajectory took me in another direction. So it, you know, it worked out okay. But I think that when I identify like a system of what makes a company successful at surveying their audience and understanding what their customers want. And very often that's me sort of learning from lots of other people, learning from my own experiences, trying things out, having things succeed and fail, and then sort of recognizing, pattern matching, oh, this is why this worked, sort of intuitively and trial and error, and then being able to relay that information back to someone else. And this, I think it's something I've always admired in others and wanted to emulate, right? The best speakers, when I was coming up in my career, the best speakers on stages, the videos that I watched, the blog posts that I read, right? The ones that really connected with me and made me almost jealous. Like, I want to be able to explain things that way. That's where I drew a lot of my inspiration from. And I think, you know, it also helped that I had all those years, right? Sort of the 10,000 hours thing of years and years of blogging every night and seeing what didn't work and what did, right? And when something really resonated and connected with an audience, with our audience, right? With the people who read the blog, it made a huge difference for our business. Even to this day, I get people who call me up and email me and they're like, oh, hey, like it's really, I was talking to the founder of FreshBooks. Was that yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. And he was like, gosh, you know, I remember reading your blog post back in 2009, 2010, and like, you really helped me understand SEO. It's amazing, you know, incredible. Like that absolutely. It has that resonance.
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes me to my next point, and it fits in perfectly. Something I like to speak to my team about is that we live in a time, and especially in our industry, we have access to such large amounts of content and information, and to be able to learn to do different things. If, let's say on Monday, I want to start, you know, my own automated email marketing campaign. Maybe it won't be the perfect one, but if I spend the whole weekend consuming content, I'll be able to do something all right, because I have access to that, and I don't even have to, well, I can't leave my house, but I don't even have to leave my house. And you know, both you and with Moz, and especially with the Whiteboard Friday concept, you've helped train thousands of SEOs, not only in the States and in Europe, but in Latin America as well. So I was wondering, where does Rand get his information today? Where are you getting your digital marketing content today, your data, your statistics? Who's killing it out there?
Yeah. You know what I found that's fascinating, as compared to years past where I would have given you probably a few different blogs and individual people, today I get almost all of my information from aggregators. So just slightly self-serving, but it's just a free thing we have in SparkToro. I don't know if you checked out the SparkToro trending, but it essentially just aggregates a bunch of marketers' Twitter feeds and looks at URLs that they share in common. And so, you know, essentially there's whatever, 5,000 or 10,000 marketers who've connected their Twitter accounts to trending, and then trending shows, here's 40 people shared this URL today. And that is where I get a ton of my stuff. I'm also a huge user of Hacker News and a consumer of Reddit. I have a bunch of subreddits that I subscribe to and aggregate data that way. Pocket has a recommendation system behind the scenes that aggregates stuff that people have suggested on Pocket and that people are engaging with and reading. Those are my, and TechMeme. So those are like my big four. I kind of read those every day. I obviously use Twitter and LinkedIn pretty heavily as well. But so I think what's interesting about that is it suggests a sort of move from media brands owning the landscape, which, hey, 10 years ago, right, I would have given you a list of 10 or 12 blogs. I would have said like, oh, you know, I read Search Engine Roundtable, I read Search Engine Land, I read whatever, SE Journal, I read Moz, I read Backlinko, whatever, right? That's my list. And now that's not my list, right? My list is these aggregators. What's cool about that, what I think is great, is it means anyone can get in front of people, right? Like if you put out some amazing piece of content, it doesn't matter that you're, you know, stuck in your house in Argentina, right? Like it can make its way around the world, around the internet marketing world, globally, from getting onto some of these platforms. And that is super cool as compared to, you know, 10 years ago when you're like, well, how am I going to get published on whatever, Moz or Search Engine Land or you know, these types of publications?
Yeah, no, that's quite interesting. I hadn't seen it that way, so I'll definitely check out some of those sources.
Yeah.
I don't want to make the typical question of which marketing channels do you think are the most effective, but let's segment that question. Which marketing channels are most effective for small local companies, and how is that different to what's effective for the larger, you know, top 3, top 4 leading companies in a bigger industry?
Yeah.
What's that gap?
I think if you are small and locally focused, it really pays to go where your particular audience and customers are, as opposed to when you're very big, you can just throw dollars at the problem and essentially the platforms will figure it out for you, right? So if I run thousands of restaurants all across the United States and Canada, right? I can essentially pour dollars into a ton of different channels, and over time I'll see which ones are high and low ROI and, you know, invest accordingly. But if I'm one local restaurant in one market, no way I can do that, right? Instead, what I really have to do is have conversations with my customers.
Okay.
Right? People come in, I ask them about themselves. I ask if they would, you know, I set up an email list, right? Probably. And then I have those people, you know, get whatever it is, weekly specials or discounts or news updates, or now that we're all in quarantine, a lot of it is like takeout and delivery, and Seattle just legalized cocktail kits. So you can like have a cocktail kit sent to you by a bar, which is awesome. So I'm signing up for a few of those. But like that, right? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I use that direct connection to my customer and my audience to basically collect more information. So once a quarter, once a year, maybe I'll send them a survey and ask them things about how they find us and what they also read and participate in. And then, right, I can aggregate that data and I can say, aha, when people are, you know, looking for takeout or delivery, these are the top 3 platforms that my customers are using in my city, right? And now I'm going to be on whatever, Caviar instead of Grubhub or Uber Eats or whatever, you know, whatever it is, or all 3 of them. I'm going to do my advertising and marketing in these local publications, or I want to have this person on Instagram come into my come into the restaurant and try our food. Like that's who I'm pitching. Those kinds of things.
Okay.
So I think it pays to like do the detail level work,
right?
When you're small and local.
Yeah, I think you can also. There's this new tool. It's called I think it's called SparkToro, that can help you get and aggregate all that data for you democratically. I don't know. I think you should check it out.
Depends on who you are. So I think this is one of the true weaknesses of SparkToro, is if an audience isn't describable. Like people who go to restaurants.
Yeah,
I go to restaurants. You know, maybe you go to restaurants, but we don't say like restaurant goer. Right. In our profile, we don't talk about things online that necessarily suggest that. And so we're not a very sort of aggregatable audience for a restaurant business. I use the example all the time of like SparkToro is great if you want to reach real estate agents, because they all say they're real estate agents.
That's true.
But it's terrible if you want to reach homeowners, because no one says I'm a homeowner, right? So
that's true.
Same thing, same concept here, which is why I think if you're small and local and your audience is describable, yes, something like SparkToro is good. You could use Facebook's audience targeting tool for that. You can use some Google tools for that, right? You probably know some of the things that people are searching for, and you can start to target those. Awesome. If your audience is not describable, now you really have to go one-to-one and, you know, get a few dozen, a few hundred of your customers. Especially, I really recommend email over anything else, because I think the power of email is you control it. Unlike, you know, you don't want people to like your page on Facebook or to, you know, follow you on Instagram. The value of that is just so small compared to an email address. I would really encourage small businesses to go after the email.
Yeah, no, as you mentioned in other talks, you can't do anything with that like or with that follow on that fan page. You can't decide how to interact with that person versus a visit to the website. No, absolutely.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, the only thing you can really do is, oh, I got people to like me on Facebook. Well, great. Now you can pay Facebook to advertise to them. Like, Facebook's just thrilled, right?
Yeah, they'll always take our dollars.
Yeah,
it's almost like it's Wall Street. If you give us money, we will take it.
They do like the money.
Okay, so going a little bit into SEO, I think we kind of talked about this, but I wanted to hear your take on it. What kind of skills should or you see from, you know, almost not an external view, because you're still associated with the SEO community and you generate, you know, great amounts of data, especially with Jump Shot, but what skills do you think SEOs should be focusing on getting, you know, acquiring today versus what they would have needed, you know, maybe a couple of years ago?
Ooh, interesting. Yeah. Gosh, I mean, my sense is that as the industry is broadening out and as more kinds of businesses are looking for SEOs, there's more industry, I'm going to call it professionalism, and some formalization in the field. I think that some bigger picture skills are actually more useful now than they were historically. So as an example, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, especially, and definitely 15 years ago, if you were an SEO and you were, you know, a master of keyword research and targeting, you could get by with being sort of a weird communicator and awkward on email and bad at follow-up and not very, you know, communicative and responsible, and, you know, all sorts of flaws could be forgiven because there were very few people with your skill set, and people really needed that.
Right.
That's not going so well anymore, right? Now there are, you know, the SEO industry is as big as it's ever been, and it keeps growing. I think it will keep growing as digital marketing, especially probably exacerbated by the pandemic, right? I think that all of us staying at home means that everything has to be done over the web. And the next couple of years are going to mean, even if people start to go out, I think there's going to be this general, like, I do more online than I do offline. And that's going to penetrate more and more of the population that hadn't been completely online until now. I think it's also going to create habits that are going to be tough to break in decades to come, right? Like, businesses are going to flock to the internet, consumers flock to the internet, and then like that persists even after the pandemic. And so I think we're going to get more and more and more people in SEO and digital marketing, which means you can't just stand out on your individual, you know, technical skill set or particular area of knowledge. I think you're going to have to also be great at what's commonly called soft skills.
Right.
That is probably the number one thing I would urge SEOs to invest in right now. Great communication skills, right? Being able to write extremely well, concisely, thoughtfully, explain topics and content well, be able to explain technical topics to non-technical people well, be able to pitch well, be able to sell yourself. Those kinds of skills, I think, are the biggest ones for SEOs the next 5 years.
Yeah, in a way, being a bit more client-centric, you know, focusing on what exactly they're looking for and how we need to communicate what we do a bit more efficiently, so they can understand it.
Yeah, and it's true for in-house SEOs as well, right? The same skills will get you very far in-house because you'll be able to, I mean, essentially sell yourself and your projects.
Yeah, that applies to whether you're, you know, an agency, a consultant, or even an in-house SEO. You got to sell the idea to get it to work, and then when you get the results, it's a lot easier to keep going down that path.
Yeah,
honestly.
totally. I actually, you know what? I have a plug on that front. This. If you haven't checked it out already,
okay,
I recommend you and any of the listeners to check out this book from Liz Bosling and Molly West Duffy called No Hard Feelings. Best soft skills book I've read in my whole career. I loved it. That was so good.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely check it out. Yeah, that sounds great. And let's continue with that comment you mentioned of explaining complex concepts simply to audiences that may not be so, or SEO, or, you know, digital savvy. One of the more complex concepts that I found to be difficult to explain, to communicate or convey the value of is link building. How would you explain the value or the importance of link building to someone that, you know, a business owner or a decision maker that has, you know, not a whole lot of concept of SEO? Sure.
Yeah. So I've talked to tons of folks over my career around this, and I think there's two kind of important points that I try and make clear to everyone. One is Google's ranking system is based on not only the quality of the information that you offer, but also what other people say about you. Okay. Right? And this is kind of classic. If I say, oh, SparkToro is an amazing tool and you should check it out, your reaction is, well, you're the owner of SparkToro. You're going to say, of course you're going to say that. But if some third party that has no association, no affiliation, no financial relationship, doesn't know Rand personally, if they say SparkToro is amazing, okay, now I've got to try it, right? That is really, really interesting. For example, when we started this call, we talked about Carbonaro.
Yes.
I don't have, it's not like I have a huge investment in the egg and pasta industry, right? But,
no, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I do, right? We don't know.
Who knows?
But right, so that recommendation sort of feels more organic. It feels like, oh, I should try this. It sounds incredible, right? Rand has no incentive here other than he just wants to help me have tasty pasta. And the same thing is true with Google. They are looking for what other people say about you as much or more so than what you say about yourself. And links are the primary way that they do that. They look at all the websites that point to everyone on the internet, and they're able to determine from that a ton of information about who's reputable, trustworthy, high quality, who deserves sort of high rankings and who doesn't. And so if you want to be considered by Google for those top rankings for all sorts of search terms, you need to be referenced and linked to by lots of places that say you are the trustworthy source, right? Yeah. And the second piece is that when you look through your places that have sent you traffic, there's basically, 4 or 5 ways you can get traffic. You can get traffic that is direct, right? People just typing in your URL. You can get people who come to you from search. You can get people who come to you from social media sources like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, et cetera. And you can get referral traffic, right? People who send you direct visitors from other places on the web. And growing that referral traffic only happens one way: link building.
Right.
I urge folks to do that, especially because you are so much at the mercy of changes to, search engine rankings, changes to search patterns, social media algorithms updating, right? 10 years ago, Facebook sent, whatever, 5% to 10% of your Facebook likes would see your content when you posted it. Now it's 0.04% or whatever it is on average. That there's nothing you did wrong. Facebook just decided, no, we don't want to show your stuff to anybody anymore, right? So you don't own and control it anymore. Right. Referral traffic is one that you really get to control, right? It's one that you can influence directly. That's why I would invest. That's another big reason I'd invest in link building.
Okay. Awesome. So link building is what, others are saying about us, and, how are they valuing our content or information or whatever it is we are offering. I want to go briefly into what we do and how we talk about ourselves. So the phrase "content is king" has been a buzz phrase. Let's put not buzzword, but buzz phrase for quite some time now. And in your last survey you did on which are the ranking factors that are most relevant to different SEOs, you mentioned content being one of the most important ones. What do you think is the impact of having good, high quality content on both, obviously on the SEO end, but on the overall user experience of using a site? Let's take an example, an e-commerce website that you wouldn't genuinely say, okay, they have a large amount of content.
Yeah, I mean, user experience is essentially, it's a very broad descriptor that covers all of the elements that make a site easy to use, pleasurable to use, worth visiting and recommending and coming back to, worth choosing over the competition. Mm-hmm. And so that is an investment that everyone needs to make, because if you fail to do so or do so well enough, people will choose alternatives. Google will rank alternatives, right? You, especially in a time when commerce can't really happen offline and can only happen online. Mm-hmm. User experience is not just it's not quite like SEO in that it's especially for small local businesses, it's not like that much of a competitive advantage. It's more a bar you have to pass, right? If you're under the bar, you're just going to lose out. You're not even going to get considered, right? You can't be in the consideration set. And so you have to cross that bar before you can have the opportunity. And I think for internet-based businesses, for folks who are maybe a little more on the mid-sized to large businesses, they can make extraordinary user experiences can be a competitive advantage for them, right, as well. But
okay. And do you think, keeping on that train of thought, do you think working on things such as UX or even CRO, do you think that can increase the ROI of whatever it is you're doing from an SEO strategy point of view?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Right. So, anytime you make your website easier to use, more pleasurable to use, more likely to get people through your process, right, to whatever you're trying to accomplish, right, an email sign up or a conversion, a sale. Mm-hmm. Anytime you have that process become easier, you basically get this halo effect that impacts every marketing channel you have, right? So now your email marketing is more valuable because a higher percent of people who receive your emails click through and make it to conversion, and your search channel becomes more valuable, your advertising channels become more valuable, your social channels, your direct, your referral. This is hugely valuable. I think what's challenging is to know, when have I put in the 20% of work on my UX that has 80% of the returns, and when am I in the You know, I'm noodling around with button colors and positioning of nav elements and like changing a headline here or there to try and eke out 0.01% more conversion rate with not a lot of statistical significance. That I have seen marketing departments get lost in those paths, especially at bigger companies, but lost in those weeds for years, trying to eke out, you know, small percentage gains.
Right. No, absolutely. So last couple of questions I wanted to talk to you about. So you mentioned that in the different studies you've put out with SparkToro and with JumpShot, you mentioned that in the US, a little bit over 50% of searches receive no clicks, at least in mobile.
And in fact, desktop and mobile combined as of last year.
Okay. Well, well, now I'm worried. I don't know. I didn't know that part. Now I'm a bit worried.
Well, so interestingly enough, I bet if we were to redo it today, it would go down. That number would be maybe even below 50%. And the reason is the last 3 months have seen the biggest jump in desktop usage in the last 15 years, because for the first time, everybody's home. And so we're all using desktops instead of these things, because we're not on the road and at our offices, et cetera, et cetera. So it wouldn't surprise me to see higher click-through rates now than what we saw same time last year.
Okay. And obviously this has to do with, the way, in large part, it has to do with our behavior as users, but also what Google is doing to the, search result page and with its different updates. Is there any way we can fight back? Is there still some part of the SERP page we can win?
Sure. So I think two things are true on this front, right? One is that you can target, specifically, you can choose to target keywords that still mostly send traffic out. And you can do that based on looking at the SERP features, right? So I know Moz has this, I think Ahrefs, SEMrush, a whole bunch of the tools, right, will show you, hey, here are the features that appear on this search result for the keywords that you're targeting. And you can look at the ones, and Moz at least has like an estimate of click-through rate. So we estimate 70% of searchers who search for this phrase click through to a website. Awesome, right? So you can prioritize the ones that send clicks versus the ones that just have volume.
Right.
Alternatively, and I think some really clever SEOs are doing this as well, they are recognizing that just because something doesn't send a click doesn't mean it doesn't have value, right? Some things with no clicks still are strong, important ways to influence searchers and potential customers. And our job changes from basically doing classic SEO that drives traffic to my website into, let me do SEO that is on SERP SEO, right? On the search results. I want to control the information that Google is providing such that it nudges people toward my brand. Local SEO is almost all this, because so much local search is a click on Google Maps results, right? And so there's no click to your website, but people might still find your address, your business's name, your phone number, right? And then come to your business physically, or go to your business through Google Maps, or call you up through that. And you don't know that it was Google Maps,
right?
But that's the source. And so that on SERP SEO, I think, is very, very important for the future. It's just not measurable. And so it's much harder to make the case to invest in. The only case that you can really make is, look how many people are seeing these search results.
Right.
We need to find a way to influence people through them.
That's where the soft skills we were talking about earlier come into play, to be able to communicate the value of, look, you're not getting clicks from this, but on one hand, if you're getting this, your competition isn't getting it. And on the other hand, this is branding as well.
Exactly right.
That's great. So one final question, that doing my research, I found you spoke on Digital Marketing Radio in 2016. And the title of the talk was, what will SEO be like in 2020? So you mentioned that
Oh man, every prediction about this year is going to be wrong. Like every prediction.
But I love the way you went about it though, because you said, you first looked back to the difference between 2012 and 2016, and you said the fundamentals really haven't changed. So I can kind of predict those will remain the same for 2020. So now we have a little bit, a little asterisk we're going to have to add on this year. But do you think, first off, do you think we've changed as an industry from 2006 to 2020?
Let's see, I would say the industry has grown. It has gotten a little bit more mature, and I think that's always been true over any span. I also think that there is more. One of the things that I probably did not correctly identify in 2016 was Google's, I'm almost going to call it like abuse of their monopoly power to enter sector after sector. I think I really started noticing that in like 2017 and 18 and 19, and using their market power to enter these different verticals and then dominate and control them, and take opportunity away from, website owners and media companies and businesses, small and local ones, big, corporate ones. If you're in travel, not only you're not just hard hit by the pandemic, right? You were crazy hard hit by Google's sort of let me take all the traffic and opportunity, and that was very hard as well. So I think that is one of the big changes of the industry. I think there's a lot more recognition of my competitors are, number one, Google, right? They send me traffic. They're a source of traffic. Like I need to do marketing
work for them.
Yeah, but I also have to recognize that they're a potential competitor. Okay, and then second, my actual competition. So that's another a big change that I probably didn't identify.
And you see this continuing in the future. So we would look at 2024. Do you think that's...
it's hard to say. So let's see. I think a ton of it depends, weirdly enough, a ton of it depends on politics. So in the United States, it is possible that Google will at some point face investigation and repercussions for, abuse of monopoly power types of stuff. And if that's the case, it's possible that a bunch of opportunity will return that Google had previously taken, right? That they'll kind of have to pull back on, you can't just enter market after market and use your sort of search dominance to do that, at which point that traffic will go back to other people. Right. Is that possible? Yes, I think that is possible. Whether it happens, hard to say.
Yeah, obviously. Well, Rand, thank you very much for your time and for your questions. I think I had a great time, and I have new ideas and new things to worry about, but all happy problems. So I'm really happy we got to chat, and we started talking about food, and so let's end talking about food. We have a tradition at Puntorojo where every time, it's not the most creative tradition, but I think it's the one we had for the longest time. Whenever somebody comes new into the team, they stand in front of the office and they present themselves, and then everybody goes around and tells them, what they do, and they ask them one question. And, having been there for a couple of years, you kind of know everybody has like this one set. Somebody's going to ask you whether you like cats or dogs. Somebody's going to ask you about music. My personal question is, what are your two favorite ice cream flavors?
Two favorite ice cream flavors.
Two ice cream flavors.
Gosh, I for some reason love coffee ice cream. Okay. And it's a tough one because unless it's made with decaf, a lot of the time, you don't want to have it at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at night, which is oftentimes the ice cream hour. Yeah, ice cream, right. So I love espresso ice cream. The second flavor, gosh, I like mint chip a lot. Okay. Yeah, mint with chocolate chips. That's pretty darn good. I actually like it even better when instead of chocolate chips, they do like the little shavings of chocolate. No, it's like, that's the one. Okay. And strong mint. I like a lot of mint flavor in there. Not like the
almost like you're brushing your teeth. Almost.
Yeah. Exactly. Like you get a little bit of that tingle. I like that.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Thanks, Rand. So thank you again. We look forward to speaking to you, and we look forward to having you in Argentina in 2021.
Oh, I can't wait.
For our SEO day.
Yes. Yes. All right. We got to make that happen.
Yeah. We're known for our meats and different kinds of food, but we actually have great ice cream as well. So whenever that happens, I'll personally take you out to get some ice cream. I
can't wait. I'm so excited. I want to be able to travel again and go places and see people and eat things. Oh, I miss
That's part about traveling. Yeah.
All right. I can't wait.
All right. Thanks Thank you very much. Take care.